complete with joy. We celebrate the birth of Christ through giving, sharing, and love. Our final performances, we hope we will remind you of the true Christmas spirit.
The Christmas truce between British and German soldiers of 1914. It's certainly one of the most remarkable incidents of World War I.
On Christmas Day, the German troops stopped shooting and began to sing Christmas carols, to which the British troops responded by singing English carols. This piece is composed of letters they wrote to their family, friends, and lovers about this eventful day.
Christmas Day, 1914. Dear Mother,
my darling Meg,
My good friend Charles,
My dear sister Janet,
it is 2 o'clock in the morning, and most of the men are asleep in their dugouts.
yet I could not sleep myself before writing to you of the wonderful events of Christmas Eve.
in truth, what happened seems almost like a fairy tale. And if I hadn't been through it myself, I would scarce believe it.
just imagine while you and the family sung carols before their fires in London. I did the same with enemy soldiers here on the battlefields of France.
As I wrote before, there has been little serious fighting of late. The first battles of the world left so many dead that both sides have held back until replacements could come from home. So we have mostly stayed in our trenches and waited.
But what terrible waiting it has been, knowing that any moment an artillery shell might land and explode beside us in trench, killing or maiming severe men. And in daylight, not daring to lift our heads above ground for fear of a sniper's bullet.
In the rain, it has fallen almost daily. Of course, it corrects right in our trenches where we must bait it out with pots and pans. And the rain has come mud, a good foot or more deep.
It splatters and cakes everything and constantly sucks our boots. One new recruit got his feet stuck in it, and then his hands too when he tried to get out, just like an American story with that tar baby.
Through all this, we couldn't help feeling curious about the German soldiers across the way. After all, they faced the same dangers we did, and slogged about in the same muck.
What's more, their first trench is only 50 yards from ours, between us lay no man's land, bordered on both sides by barbed wire. Yet they were close enough, we sometimes heard their voices.
Of course, we hated them whenever they killed our friends. But other times we joked about them and almost felt we had something in common.
And now it seems they feel the same.
Just yesterday morning, Christmas Eve day, we had our first big breeze. Cold as we were, we welcomed it, because at least the mud froze solid.
Everything was tinged white with the frost, while a bright sun shone over all. Perfect Christmas weather.
During the day, there was a little shedding of light fire from either side, and the darkness fell on Christmas Eve. The shooting stopped entirely.
Our first complete silence in months. We hoped it might promise a peaceful holiday, but we didn't count on it. We'd been told the Germans might attack and try to catch us off guard.
I went to the dugout rest, and lying on my cot, I must have drifted asleep. All at once, my friend was shaking my leg, saying, "Come and see! See what the Germans are doing!" I grabbed my rifle, stumbled into a trench, and stuck my head cautiously above the sandbags.
I never hoped to see a stranger, a more lovely sight. Flattered of tiny lights shining all along the German line. left and right, as far as the eye could see.
What is it? I asked in bewilderment, and someone answered, Christmas trees!
And so it was. The German had placed Christmas trees in front of the trenches, lit by candle and lantern, like beacons of goodwill.
And then we heard their voices raising song. Stille Nacht, heilige Nacht. This carol may not yet be familiar to us in Britain, but one soldier knew it and translated it. Silent night, holy night.
I never heard one lovelier or more meaningful. In that quiet, clear night, it's dark, softened by a first quarter moon.
When the song finished, the men in our trenches applauded. Yes, British soldiers applauded Germans.
Then, while we all men started singing, and we all joined in. The first Noel, the angel did say.
In truth, we sounded no near as good as the Germans with their fine harmonies, but they responded with the enthusiastic applause of their own, and then began another. O Tannenbaum, O Tannenbaum. Then we replied,
O come, O ye faithful.
But this time, they joined in, singing the same words in Latin.
Holy faithless, joyful triumphant, O come, to Bethlehem. British and German harmonizing across no man's land. I would have thought nothing could be more amazing, but what came next was more so.
English, come over! We heard one of them shout. You know shoot! We know shoot!
There in the trenches, we looked at each other bewildered. Then one of us shouted jokingly, You come over here?
To our astonishment, we saw two figures rise from the trench, climb over the barbed wire, and advance, unprotected across no man's land.
One of them called, Send us to talk!
I saw one of them Richard backwards to the way, and no doubt other did the same. But our captain called out, Hold your fire! Then he climbed out and went to meet the Germans halfway.
We heard them talking, and a few minutes later, the captain came back with a German cigar in his mouth. We've agreed there will be no shooting before midnight tomorrow, he announced. But sentries are to remain on duty, and the rest of you, stay alert.
Across the way, we could make out groups of 2 or 3 men, starting out of our trenches and coming toward us.
Then some of us were climbing up too. And then minutes more, there we were in no man's land. Over 100 soldiers and officers of each side, shaking hands with the men who had been tried to kill just hours earlier.
Before long, a bonfire stirred, and around it were mingled British khaki and German grey. I must say the Germans were the better dressed with fresh uniforms for the holiday.
Only a couple of men knew German, but all of the Germans knew English. I asked one of them why that was. Because many have worked in England, he said. Before all this, I was a waiter to Cecil. Perhaps I waited on your table. Perhaps you did, I said, laughing.
One German told me he had a girlfriend in London and that the war had interrupted their plans for marriage. I told him, Don't worry, we have you beat by Easter. Then you can come back and marry the girl. He laughed at that. Then he asked if I sent her a postcard he'd give me later, and I promised I would.
Another German had done a portrait at Victoria Station. He showed me a picture of his family back in Munich. His eldest sister was so lovely. I said I should like to meet her someday. He beamed and said he would like that very much, and gave me his family's address.
Even those who could not converse could still exchange gifts. Our cigarettes for their cigars, our tea for their coffee, our corned beef for sausage. Badges and buttons from uniforms changed owners, and one of the lads walked off with an infamous piked helmet.
I myself traded a jackknife for the leather equipment belt. A fine souvenir to show when I get home.
Newspapers too changed hands, and Germans howled with laughter at ours. They assured us that the France was finished, and Lusher nearly bitten too.
We told them that was nonsense, and one of them said, "Well, you believe your newspapers, and we'll believe ours."
Clearly, they are lied to. Yet, after meeting these men, I wonder how truthful our own newspapers have been.
These are not the savage barbarians we've read so much about. They are men with homes and the families, hopes and the fears, principles, and, yes, love of country.
In other words, men like ourselves.
Why are we led to believe otherwise?
As it grew late, a few more songs were traded out on the fire, and then all joined in for I'm not lying to you. Old Lang Syne.
Should all acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should all acquaintance be forgot and all lang syne?
Then we parted with promises to meet again tomorrow.
And even some talk of a football match.
I was just starting back to the trenches when an older German clasped my arm. "My God," he said, "why cannot we have peace and no go home?" I told him gently that you must ask your emperor. He looked at me searchingly, "Perhaps, my friend, but also we must ask our hearts."
And so, dear mother,
Dear wife,
dear friend,
"Dear sister, tell me!"
has there ever been such a Christmas Eve in all history?
and what does it all mean, this impossible befriending of enemies?
For the fighting here, of course. It means regrettably little. Decent fellow those soldiers may be, but their father orders that we do the same.
Besides, we are here to stop their army and send it home. And never could we shirk that duty.
Still, one cannot help imagine what would happen if the spirit shown here were caught by the nations of the world.
Of course, disputes must always arise.
But what if our leaders were to offer well wishes in place of a warning?
Songs in place with slurs.
Present in place of reprisals.
Will not all war end at once?
All nations say they want peace.
Yet, on this Christmas morning, I wonder if he wanted quite enough.
Yours truly.
Yours always.
Sincerely.
With all my love.
John.
Andrew.
Philip.
Tom.